Welcome back to the channel. So, engagement or project, and what's the difference? So, in this section of the video looking at delivering successful business outcomes with Catalyst, we now have to look at delivering Catalyst engagements. Now we have to remember that the MuleSoft Catalyst is a methodology for delivering a successful MuleSoft implementation, and that delivery is probably in most circumstances going to be by a third party, a consultancy, or a delivery partner to the organisation, which of course may include MuleSoft professional services themselves. Having this mindset means that an engagement is not a one-off project, but rather a number of projects executed over a defined period of time, where each project will deliver a defined capability such as a product or a service which brings benefit to the organisation. So, taking a definition from the material provided on the MuleSoft course itself, a Catalyst engagement is an arrangement between a delivery organisation and a business unit to achieve one or more business outcomes related to an initiative. So let's go straight into exam tip 1. Remember that the Catalyst encourages a product mindset, treating assets as evolving products that grow and adapt to meet an organisation's changing needs. Now, projects are continuously executed to introduce additional features and capabilities over time. In this way, a business is better able to address the changing requirements of the industry in which it operates. To illustrate this point more clearly, we can look at this diagram where we can use the 3 pillars of the Catalyst: business outcomes, technology delivery, and organisational enablement to achieve the defined business objectives. If we can define at the start of the engagement a number of business initiatives, then each of the projects identified must contribute to these initiatives over that defined period of time. So, having said that, we have engagements and projects within the engagement. Now let's have a look at the anatomy of a Catalyst engagement. So Catalyst engagement are often broken down into 3 areas that you should be familiar with by now. Catalyst launch, which consists of the first 2 phases: plan for success and establish the foundation. Catalyst scale, build to scale, and Catalyst optimize, which is the measure the impact phase. Of course, for delivery partners that are not familiar with the business, they are entering other activities that may include such as business and architecture reviews. Let's look at each phase in more detail, starting with the Catalyst launch. Now, one could argue that this is the most important phase, in as much as the focus is establishing the foundation of the platform, a bit like building the foundations of a house. You have to have solid foundations. Of course, everyone is looking at getting that immediate value from the investment. But to do that, you have to ensure that the organisation is set up to deliver the initial and ongoing value through organisational enablement, which in turn will support business outcomes. Straight into exam tip 2. You may see a reference to the first 90 to 180 days of the engagement, but remember that this refers to the typical time for the launch phase. This is the time that usually required to ensure that a business is set up for success, but it can be much longer depending on the organisation that you are working with. This does not refer to the integrated blueprint duration of planning, unless the organisation decides that is what it wants to do. Some of the typical things that will happen in this stage of the engagement are delivering the overall plan of the engagement and defining the desired business outcomes. Deployment and setting up the platform, so it's a technical task to set up the platform. Identifying and, if possible, delivering the initial use cases, which we call our quick wins, and establishing the C4E. Delivering a training plan for the roles and people that will fill those roles in the organisation. Right, now you should start seeing some more familiar terms coming around. Scale is focused on driving reuse through what you have already established, and here we should see modifications and enhancements to the platform, driving value through reuse of assets that you've already built, scaling of the C4E, and looking at the training plan again to revise what training is still to take place, or in fact identify new training that needs to be done. At this stage, the support model for the capability should also be reviewed and amended if necessary. During this engagement, many activities involve refining the original Catalyst launch outcomes based on feedback from C4E and platform users. For this reason, it's really difficult to define the length of the phase, as this will very much depend upon that feedback, what's received and the desired outcome of the business. You may have opened your eyes of the business to the art of the possible, and therefore engagement and the time required in this phase may be extended by a considerable amount. And so we come to the final phase, optimize. This phase is focused on looking at technology, processes and people within the organisation to see how each can be optimised in their own way. Some of the activities may include evaluation and optimisation of the training being provided to staff, as I've said previously, reviewing internal support capabilities now that the new capability has been introduced into the organisation, looking at the structure and operation of the C4E to see if it's working as well as it could, and identifying the use cases completed, part completed, or in fact new use cases that have arisen from the feedback that you've received. Now, evaluating how the MuleSoft capability is being used, remembering this could be by MuleSoft Anypoint platform, or it could be one of the other MuleSoft products such as RPA and some of the newer products, and what changes or enhancements could assist the customer in these areas. Take a look at your reporting, your data gathering, dashboards, etc., to see if they are providing value or could provide more value, and of course reviewing and possibly changing business objectives and the desired business outcomes. It's also important at this stage to review the KPIs that are being used, as optimization will often have an impact on what and how the KPIs are measured. Again, the timeline for this phase are very difficult to project, because until you look at optimization, you don't really know what you're going to find. If you've done a perfect job, the phase may be very short, but I would suggest that this is incredibly unlikely. On the other hand, the implementation may not have been poor, but may have opened other possibilities from the business, in which case optimization could be a much longer process. But a word of caution here, you need to be really clear about defining the boundaries between optimization and scope creep, especially in a consultancy type environment, because obviously that will depend on finance again to extend, if the business desires, the actual engagement. Now, optimization improves what you already have, whereas new requirements drive a change of scope and are very different things with sometimes a fuzzy boundary. And that brings us to the end of this video. If you found it useful, then please give it a like. Obviously, subscribe to the channel. It will tell me that there are people that are finding this course useful. And I hope to see you in the next one.